When people hear social emotional learning, they usually think about emotions, behavior, or self regulation. And while those things can be a part of it, culturally responsive social emotional learning is not just focused on managing behavior or teaching emotional skills in isolation. It's an approach that understands that culture, identity, environment, relationships, and lived experiences shapes how children see the world around them. That includes how children experience communication, belonging, cultural expectations, social expectations, and identity. Because children are not separate from the environments they move through. Every environment communicates messages, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Children are constantly noticing. How am I expected to communicate here? What gets praised here? What feels accepted in this space? Do I feel safe expressing myself here? Do I feel like I belong here? And those experiences shape how children relate to others, how they express emotions, how they participate, how they build confidence, and how they understand themselves. Because environments can feel supportive, unpredictable, welcoming, stressful, or emotionally unsafe, depending on the child and the experience. That's why culturally responsive social emotional learning includes more than emotional regulation alone. Because children are constantly navigating different expectations across environments: home expectations, school expectations, social expectations, cultural expectations, and those expectations do not always feel the same to every child. That's why culturally responsive social emotional learning also includes identity, communication, relationships, awareness, belonging, environment, and lived experience. Because all of those things affect how children experience social and emotional life. Take belonging, for example. Belonging is not just about physically being included in a space. It's about whether a child feels emotionally safe enough to participate fully without feeling like they need to hide parts of themselves. Whether they feel safe contributing, safe expressing emotion, safe making mistakes, safe existing without constantly monitoring how they are being perceived. Because when children feel emotionally safe, it changes how they participate, communicate, and connect. Identity matters too, because children are always learning something about themselves from the environments around them. They notice what gets accepted, what gets discouraged, what gets misunderstood, and what parts of themselves feel easier to show in different spaces. Now, culturally responsive social emotional learning is not behavior compliance, one size fits all expectations, or asking every child to communicate, express themselves, or participate in the exact same way while ignoring culture, identity, and lived experience. And it's not about removing expectations either. Children are more than a set of rules to follow. They are human beings whose experiences, relationships, environments, and identities matter. It's about understanding that children experience expectations differently depending on the environment and identities they are navigating. The same expectations can feel emotionally heavier for one child than another depending on the environment, support, identity, and experiences surrounding them. For one child, participation may feel easy. For another, participation may come with self monitoring, anxiety, uncertainty, or pressure to adapt in order to fit in environments around them. Lived experience matters too, because children are constantly making sense of themselves through experiences around them: family, culture, language, community, history, stories. Over time, those experiences shape how children see themselves, where they feel they belong, and what they believe is possible for them. That's why culturally responsive social emotional learning helps us understand the full context, not just behavior alone, but identity, relationships, communication, culture and community, environments, belonging, lived experience, and the support systems. Because when we see the full context, we are better able to support the whole child. Children do not experience these things separately. They experience them together: environment, relationships, communication, belonging, culture and community, opportunities, lived experience. All of these experiences interact with one another and shape how the child experiences the world around them. That is the full picture culturally responsive social emotional learning asks us to see. Thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm Faith, and this is Cultural SEL. I share practical tools and reflections that connect social emotional learning with culture, identity, and belonging, so children feel confident in who they are, where they come from, and how they move across different spaces. Check the description for tools and resources.